Welcome to Roundtable Off Script. I'm Aimee Griffith Johnson, and this is a podcast where three individuals with three perspectives sit at one table and have authentic conversations about real issues. Opinions will differ, and the things that will be said may be difficult to hear. It might get a little uncomfortable, but it will be honest, and it's definitely not boring. So pull up a chair with Susie, Nicole, and myself as we go off script. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
How are we doing today? I wanted to start off by saying Happy New Year's. So what are everybody's plans for New Year's?
That's a great question.
It's a loaded question nonetheless.
100%. For me, I'm going to be spending it with my mom in New Mexico.
Definitely makes sense. Family time, I think, is always so very important, especially when we all go through things or we're just wanting to bring in the new year together. I think family time is essential. So kudos to you. And hopefully you'll get a little bit of a mini vacay from it, you know, like while you're there, kind of visit your old stomping grounds and all that fun stuff.
It's funny. I feel like I time warp when I go back home because even the music is like the older music. It's just funny. Even what my mom listens to, everything about it is like a time warp. It's funny.
I love it. And you know what? I mean, for those who don't know, I believe you said, Susie, you're from a small town. I'm also from a small town, so I love that small town feel where you just have a sense of safety or a sense that although they may not know you now, they probably know your family. So that's nice.
Exactly.
What about you, Nicole?
For the kids, it's hard to make plans, or we can make plans, but whether or not we're going to be able to keep them. We just don't want to be on the road. That's the main thing. We don't want to be on the road on New Year's Eve, and
Definitely.
we want to be able to sleep. So, depending on the fireworks and our kids' schedule, we have very low hopes, in hopes that there's high ways to meet those hopes.
Well, I love that. Set the expectation or the bar low, so anything above that will be so amazing, right? So,
and then if you missed it, you didn't miss it by much.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you that obviously I have one goal in mind for January itself specifically, and that is I'll be visiting my daughter and her family, you know, her extended family in Idaho, bringing in a baby shower. So super excited like that. Yay. So yeah, we'll be spending the last part of January over there. And yeah, it'll be lots of fun and excitement.
It's really exciting.
It is. I'm really super excited about it. First time grandparent right here. So my husband and I will be Mimi and Poppy. So, you know, and it's funny how I came up with that name. And it's so funny because I thought, oh, I'm creating something so new. No, I'm not. So apparently my daughter's husband, his parents are already grandparents and, you know, of their other children, their other older children. And it's funny because they've been, I kid you not, a Mimi and a Poppy specifically for at least 18 years. So there is nothing new about that. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I created this amazing new name because I'm Aimee. Not that my kiddos would ever call me or my grandkiddos would ever call me Aimee, but you know, when kiddos are learning the name Aimee, they usually can't pronounce A's, so they go Mimi. So yeah, there goes that one. I'm not as creative as I thought I was. So, you know, aside from that, you know, I think we should talk about and tell everyone how we came to be. You know, what kind of propelled us forward, you know, and why we're here today and what we tend to do moving forward into 2026. What do y'all think? Yeah. So, does anybody want to start specifically? Or do you want me to do?
Go for it, Aimee.
Okay, I'll go for it. I'll kick us off. Well, why not? We're kicking off the new year, right? So this is fantastic. So I've had a vision for quite some time, and I won't speak for my amazing friends Nicole and Susie, but as we know, we come from a very we're all moms first. I would think we can agree on that. We're definitely all moms first. Very different perspectives on how we do things, but we all tend to wind up kind of the same goal in a sense. So what I mean by that is we love our kiddos. We will be the best advocates for our kiddos. But what does that look like when we are taxed with, additional things that we weren't expecting, like disabilities or medical issues or, just some major concerns, whatever that looks like for any of us throughout our walks of life? Well, I think what we can safely say is we all ended up kind of driving our future into advocacy, right? I would think we drove our future into advocacy, and whether that looked like, hey, we would just want to be the best mom advocates possible, or some of us took it a step further and we decided to go into that professional realm as well. Whether that was we were already educated for that field or we got educated for that field. So I'm going to fast forward now. And my vision ended up being that, wow, how cool would it be to bring some moms together who are experts not only on their own kiddos, but experts on, disabilities and kind of helping to navigate those really multi-complex systems of governments, if you will, whether it be, trying to help others navigate the really complex field of insurances, how to obtain state-funded things, local-funded things, IEPs. I mean, just various different things. And I felt like that me personally, I was holding on to all this information, and I was actually even helping, aside from I call my day job, I was even helping in the pockets of my time through a business of mine, help others access those very same things that they need. And how cool is it that, yes, although we live in 1 out of 50 states plus 6 to 7 US territories, how cool is it that we all have the same type of language going across those avenues? So what might look like a specific thing for us in, say, California or in New York, it still speaks the same language, just maybe a little bit of a different narrative in other states. So why not help others? Why keep all of this amazing information to ourselves when we can help others propel themselves forward into self-advocacy, into being maybe the best advocates for themselves, or maybe for those that are really, really struggling and they don't know what to do. Hopefully they can turn to us through our amazing conversations, amazing guests that we will be having throughout the year, and special speakers. And yes, even some self-advocates themselves will be on this year. So I felt the best space to do all of this is at the round table, where we bring the formalities of boardroom talk to dining room talk. Why not, stop speaking in such a way that just us regular folks, we don't understand what that means. Like there's such complicated words out there and really harsh complexities of systems out there, whether it be educational level, whether it be local, federal, state levels, and break it down for everybody. How cool is that? So here we are at Roundtable.
Well, and I think to your point too, sometimes it's not even understanding, like you said IEP earlier, and a lot of our friends and community, like they know what that is. And for those that don't, it's individualized education program. So a lot of people know the lingo, but then my passion is transition for students with disabilities, they get transition services. Federally, it has to be done by 16. Here in Arizona, it's by the end of their freshman year. And you can know the law. And I know a lot of really intelligent people and resourceful people who know the compliance and the ins and outs of transition. But then executing that in a meaningful way with the individual, that's a completely different thing. And I think we find that a lot with legislation and policy and law and all of these different things. There are people who know, like you said, the boardroom talk. They know it really well, but how to execute it and walk it out in a compassionate way, in a resourceful way, in a logical way, in a fiscally sustainable way. Those are, I mean, they should be the same thing, and they can be, but oftentimes that's what we're not seeing.
Very true. That is so, so true. And, you know, oftentimes I think about those newly diagnosed families, whether that be at, you know, medical level or, you know, neurodivergent level, whatever that looks like for those family members. And a lot of times, very often, a lot of families are going through denial. You know, it's like, this is a part of the world I didn't know existed, and I don't know if I want to know that it exists. And so when we're faced with the unthinkable, the unimaginable, you know, and that can even be somebody getting into a tragedy even, and that just changing and disrupting somebody's life and their family's life. And so a lot of times it's very difficult for people to know where to start. And I think that's where with you know, with all of us together, I mean, this is the great space for that, because we'll be breaking things down, and we'll be, you know, talking about the good, the bad, the nitty gritty, the fun stuff. I mean, we'll be talking about it all. And, you know, I think this is going to be a really safe space for people. And I think they're going to really want to stay tuned for what we have to say. So Susie, what about you?
So for me, my son is 24 years old. So, you know, we've transitioned into adulthood. And for me, for advocacy, it's always been the hope that, you know, I could speak up for my child until he could speak up for himself. So we've gotten there. Like, I think we've done pretty well as far as him advocating for himself. So my hope is really to lead by example, that's actually possible. And it's going to look different for every person. And to be honest with you, our advocacy isn't perfect. You know, there's days where my son is just like, this just too overwhelming. You know, he's things that he's advocating for, sometimes when it directly affects him, he gets too emotional, and then it just becomes a jumble of words, and he doesn't know how to do that. But we're slowly teaching him that, you know what, you can write, you know what I mean? Your best advocacy is in writing, right? You know, long ago, I saw something written that, you know, IEP Fight Club, you know, we don't do it in person, we do it in writing. And that's kind of what I've stuck to for him, because I think it helps calm his nerves.
That is so good. I think that's amazing. And I think it's trying to find what fits, right? Like, I mean, each of our children and every individual that battles something or struggles with something, I think we're not all the same, and they don't necessarily always know how to get there. So I think as moms specifically, because I mean, right, we're the expert with our own children, so I can definitely attest to this, but I think trying to figure out what works for each individual child, you know. And Susie, I'm so glad you touched on your kiddo, and I appreciate that so much. You know, for those that don't know me, I have 5 kiddos. My 5th is a bonus kiddo. He's a foster care kiddo, and he came in with serious mental illness, also known as SMI. And he also came in with autism and a couple of other things. So it took us 3 years. He's been with us for a little over 3 years now. And he came to us, Nicole, through that transition period of being that adolescent transitioning into adulthood. And he was nothing like my other 2 boys that have autism and who have ADD or ADHD, attention deficit disorder. He was very different, and he came in not only with his own individual, serious mental illness and his own neurodevelopmental struggles, but he also came in with the baggage of and the trauma that kiddos that are in the foster care system have. So we had to learn what works for him, what doesn't work for him, what his triggers were, because it's funny that I say triggers and I didn't even really know that was a thing. Of course, in everyday conversation, you're talking about, oh, this triggered me or that triggered me. And sometimes we'll just say it in conversation, just like, oh gosh, get ready for that topic. But this was different. This was very different. This was a thing that I didn't know existed prior to the foster care realm. And, kiddos that are in that world and that have, unfortunately had to go through such times, they have certain key words that you just cannot say. It will trigger a memory or, a traumatic experience. So we had to learn him. And we're still learning him, and he is an amazing young man, and he's come so far. I'm just thinking, I'm reflecting back from this time last year and the struggles we had last year. And again, rightfully so, probably struggles he had with us. So, we look at it as like our struggles, like, okay, we have this family dynamic and, this young man comes in and we're thinking, oh my gosh, the struggles. But no, I can't imagine what the struggle was like for him, being bounced around from place to place. So, we can get into the foster care system and world at a later episode, but I will say that each kiddo, for me, or each individual in my household, we had to really learn what worked for them, what didn't work for them. My youngest is medically fragile. So that was a whole nother world. So I could go on for days, but we will save those for other topics because I want Nicole to have a chance. You tell us, what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? With really learning. We have 2 children, and our oldest is 14. And when she was born, we joke she was born into the perfect storm. We were in our 20s. She was our firstborn. My husband had just been diagnosed with cancer. We had no idea what we were doing, and we were hyper-focused, obviously, on what was going on with him. And we missed what I'm sure were very apparent signs because we were listening to other people, like babies won't starve themselves. And, oh, it's so good she sleeps all the time. And it took us a couple of years before she got her diagnosis. She has a rare genetic condition called Cohen syndrome, and it explained all of the things. There were some things that were missed. And over the 14 years, it's just been learning a diagnosis while learning your child too. And it took us several years because it's genetic. In her case, we knew there was a 25% chance that any other children could possibly have the same syndrome. And for my husband, that was really hard for him to be able to jump into, let's expand our family, which I really admire him for, because it wasn't, oh, I don't want another child with Cohen syndrome. It was, I need to get into a place where I can, no matter what happens, right? Whether that child has Cohen syndrome or not, but also, just because they don't have that doesn't mean something else won't happen. And he needed to get to that place. And we, as believers, we pray a lot and just trust God with our hearts. And he got us to that place where we were, okay, God, whatever you give us. And we have our son, he's 9. So they're 4 years and 11 months apart exactly, not undone on purpose. And he does not have the syndrome. He's a carrier like my husband and I. And I admit, we were like, oh, phew, okay, he doesn't have that. And unlike our daughter, we've experienced so much. So this kid, he's going to be fine. And really, there was so much we missed because his delays they were not as apparent as hers. So we missed that speech delay. We missed that fine motor delay. We missed those things. And I think for me as a mom, but also as a Christian, it's just really been like, you know what? We are all made differently. We all have different personalities. We all have different experiences, but even if we have the same experiences, we all experience them differently. So instead of walking into it like, I became a surrogate parent. For those that don't know, it's when, like your son, Aimee, when a child does not have, when they don't have a parent who has educational rights, whether that's a biological parent, foster parent, then they have a volunteer who becomes kind of like their educational parent to help advocate for them if that student has an individualized education program. And again, I thought, oh, my son has been on an IEP, my daughter has been on one. I have enough experience that I can help these kids. And then I walked into things that I didn't. So I continue to learn the lesson over and over again that we are just all so different. So instead of going, here's what I can offer, I'm starting at 40. I'm starting to walk into this with, I know what I feel comfortable and confident in, but I also am aware that there's so much I'm not familiar with. And I come with an open mind to go, what can I learn from you? And I think that's helped me a lot in advocacy. I think that's helped me a lot as a mom. I think it's helped me a lot in my profession. But I say that it's a lesson being learned, not a lesson that I've already learned. Certainly haven't mastered.
No, I love that because I live by a motto that if we are not consistently learning, then we stifled our own selves because we don't know everything. We walk through the experiences we've had. We learn to be proficient and fluid in those experiences. And in some cases, actually go into professional manners within those fields. But we can't possibly know everything, right? I mean, no one person can possibly know everything. So I am like a sponge, and I know you ladies are too. And if I don't know something and it's been brought to my attention, I'm like, let me learn more. I want to know what you're going through. I want to make sure that I understand it. So then if it comes to the point where hopefully I'll be able to help you, I'm in the space where I can, or vice versa. You know, I love talking about my kiddos, as you guys know. And having that relatability conversation, you know, even if, you know, there's nothing anybody could do, sometimes just to have, you know, that community that you could depend on and rely on to bounce ideas off of each other. I mean, I think that's really, really awesome to do something like that. But I wanted to touch on something that you had said, Nicole, when you had mentioned that you kind of missed some signs, not only with your daughter because you're dealing with, you know, your husband's situation at the current time, but then also kind of missing some of your son's delays because they were maybe a little bit masked because you had other things going on with your other kiddo. Well, I did the same thing. I was but it's quite I did something similar, but I also did something opposite too. So my first set of children are twins. So I have a girl and a boy, and I thought their milestones would be identical every step of the way. And so when I started seeing my son kind of fall behind the curve, I kept questioning, oh my gosh, is everything okay? I mean, should he be crawling this, you know, at least within the same month that his twin sister did? Oh my gosh, should he be standing? What about saying those first few words? Well, the response I would get all the time was, oh, boys are more delayed. Oh, it'll take them longer. There's nothing to worry about. So then I did the opposite. Then I'm like, oh, he'll catch up. I'm not worrying about it. I'm singing to my own tune. Come the year checkup, they're like, well, did you see that he's still not even saying 2 words? Did you notice that he's not really stacking blocks? I mean, I'm like, and I'm thinking, but you told me not to worry about it. You know, it's like he'll catch up. So I kind of did both. I was doing too much comparison because they were twins. And then when he told me to step back because, hey, boys will be boys, so to speak. I mean, that's kind of the feedback I got. Then I took too much of a laid back approach and I started missing things. But again, we're human, right? I mean, that's just what's going to happen. I mean, you get, this set of advice from these professionals. And in this case, they were physicians. And you're like, okay, well, they're doctors. They know everything, I mean, they can't possibly not know everything. And then, and then you also hear, your other community members, your neighbors, maybe some friends, aunts, uncles. Oh, well, I was delayed when I was younger and I'm a young man, or when I was a little boy, and so you just start believing what everybody's saying when in actuality, it was a learning experience. I had to learn that, like, hey, we're not all the same. We're not going to have the same milestones, but you still need to be mindful of when delayed is too delayed. And so it was a lesson learned for me. And then with my third child, which is my youngest son, biological son, I had no clue. I was oblivious that he even had a disability because he talked and talked and talked. And he said nothing at all, but he talked all the time. And so I'm like, oh, he's got great communication. This kiddo, he's on point, but it would be something like this. Hey, so son, what do you want to do today? Well, mommy, the sky is blue. And so full, complete sentences, but not even having the same processing to answer, and again, I guess I should have been a little bit more simplistic, but hey, do you want some juice? But the sky is blue. And so again, we can't possibly know all the signs, and don't beat yourself up if you don't see them. And that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from my conversation here today is don't beat yourself up if you don't see all the signs, and don't beat yourself up if you're in denial too, because it's a part of the process of being introduced to something that may be less savory to your family lifestyle, but you will get through it.
That's the big one as you get, because my son's 24 years old, the one with the disability. I do have 2 sons, but for him specifically, I do find myself even to this day being like, well, what if, or, I didn't know what I didn't know type of phrases. Right. And so I don't want to like shit on myself. I should have done this and I shouldn't have done, and I should have done that and I shouldn't have done this. Right. All those things keep going through my brain sometimes. And then other times I was like, that's not what I would tell somebody else though. So if I was having a conversation with either of you, I wouldn't tell you guys, well, you should have, but I tend to do that for myself, right? Because you kind of get guilty for that. But yeah, I think that's my message that I would like to give to other parents out there is sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And it's okay. I mean, a lot of us, I'm sure we didn't even know what our children's disability were. Maybe we heard a reference in a movie or something and had no clue.
Well, kind of
we learned from ground up.
Yeah, Aimee, you had brought up well, doctors, they must know everything. Mm-hmm. And I think we put that on us as parents. Like, well, we are responsible for knowing the things for our children. And what I have experienced and learned is that I am modeling being a human being for my child. And my child needs, both of my children, they need to understand that as a human being, I am going to wrestle with emotions imperfectly. As a human being, I am going to learn things for the first time. As a human being, I am going to even be victorious imperfectly, right? We've all had those times where we've done something really well and get a little arrogant about it. And so I think for me, it's been, and I'd be lying if I said there weren't those moments of like, oh my goodness, how? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think I've had to learn, and I learned this early on because with our daughter, when there were signs of things that were going wrong. Again, at the same time, my husband is going through cancer treatment. We were losing our home. There was these really big things, and we didn't know that her thing was going to lead to a really big thing. And so we were just like, it's not cancer. It's not terminal. It's not this. And I didn't realize that in that. And I was also a new Christian. I didn't know like the extent of my beliefs and understanding the relationship. And so it was that Southern, everything's fine, y'all. Like, and I learned that, emotions are not a bad thing. There's this big emphasis on, be positive, and it's you have the day that you make it. And we can have emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just if we allow those emotions to dictate truth. I might feel angry. So that doesn't mean that this is an awful thing. And I've had to learn that I can model that for my children. I can model when I fail, how to fail well. I can model humility in when I'm unaware of something and I've been shown up. And then I can model how to walk in those victories well. And that's what and for me, it's a blessing because, especially for our daughter who has multiple disabilities, she has intellectual, medical, and physical disabilities. And sometimes the expectations are way too low for her. Oh, she can't do anything. And sometimes the expectations are way too high. Well, she's not going to be able to do this, so she can't be independent, which is absurd because none of us are fully independent. And I get to model for her, look, I'm not walking this out perfectly or even well. And therefore, you don't have to walk it out perfectly or well. It's as long as we are improving, learning every day, and then for us in our belief, as long as we are constantly, seeking in our beliefs and our faith, I'm not seeking perfection because I'm not going to hit it. And I'm embracing those failures and those learning opportunities because they're all part of who we are.
That's funny you say that because I always say perfectly imperfect. We are perfectly imperfect individuals and human beings. And I'm choking. Give me a second. I don't know what is going on. It's probably dry in here.
I thought I was giving you a moment, Aimee. I was like, oh, I just did.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm choking up. I really was. I mean, the right side of me was crying. It was very emotional. Only the right side, though. The other one was relatable, and this one was just super, the emotion took over. I'm sorry, Susie. You were in the middle of something. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't say anything.
Oh my gosh. Like, what is going on here? Sorry. Maybe I need to get, sorry. I probably need to get like a HEPA filter or something in here, out here in the desert, it is dusty. So, but, Nicole, it's funny you mentioned that. That's one thing I did not know about you. You said, you guys were going in the crux of, going through your husband's diagnosis and doing all these other things. Sorry about that. And losing your home on top of it. And that is just like storybook of a lot of individuals and a lot of community members. They go through things and they have to sacrifice. Do we, put every bit of effort into one direction for the health of our children, the health of our husbands, our wives, spouses, our partners, whatever that looks like, moms, dads, grandparents, and just let other responsibilities go? Sometimes we are tasked with the unimaginable. And that actually happened to us too. And a lot of people don't know that part about me, not even some family members. And when we had my youngest daughter and we had one vehicle, we lived 38 miles away, actually 38 miles away from where I reside today, but about 46 miles away from the children's hospital. My husband was the only one working at that time. And we had to make a lot of sacrifices for the first 2 years of her life. We lived in the hospital probably about 65-70% of the time. And that was also the time when gas was at its heightened, when we were paying over $4, I think maybe even close to $5 a gallon out here where we live, in our state. And my husband had to make sacrifices too. Like, hey, do I take them to the hospital and then go to work? Do I just give them the vehicle because we had one? Or, what do we do? Or do we try to phone a friend, to take them to the hospital? And we actually lost our house that year as well. It was also the collapse of everything too. I call it the recession of 2009. I mean, it kind of went on, it started kind of in 2007, cascade in 2008, it's rock bottom at 2009. Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it doesn't even have to be the recession of a specific year. This could be any individual's, what's happening to them now, single mom out there, having a kiddo that she's got to, choose, do I take care of my child, go to the hospital, or just take care of my child and their needs? Or do I work? Or do I pay that rent? Do I pay that telephone bill? Do I pay that electricity bill? I mean, it's so sad, but it's so real. And I think we do need to talk about those things, and what that means. And then, and what type of resources, that they may be able to tap into at local and state level, sometimes federal, but I mean, more importantly, things like that, those types of community things typically live in the local and state regions. So, I can't wait to continue on these conversations and really, really get in the thick of it, what this means to people. Hopefully this will propel them moving forward. And then, yeah, I think that we're on to something here, ladies, and I think we're going to have an amazing time doing it. Before we go, are there any final thoughts moving into 2026 for you ladies?
Moving it in, for I think kind of reflecting back and moving forward, is kind of my thought right now. I think that the disability community got hit pretty hard in 2025. So for 2026, I think it really needs a huge movement. It is something that really needs a conversation, needs a lot of advocacy and resources, and so many more things that I can even mention right now. What do you think, Nicole?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's hard because while those of us in the community, the disability community, would probably all agree with that, it's the how, right? We all have different ways that we would go about that. And kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about the different diagnoses and the different personalities and our different experiences. I think our society would benefit if we could embrace that in a non-controversial manner. We can have people at the table that we do not agree with, that we do not like, that we don't associate with, that we don't align with. And that doesn't have to mean that they're an enemy, right? It means that they have a different perspective. It's probably not wrong. It's probably different. But let's say it is different. Let's say it is wrong. It still doesn't mean they're the enemy. We have an opportunity to be a walking lesson for those, whether that's in the disability community or outside of it, of how we want to move forward in a progressive and productive way. And I hope our community, I saw a lot of that in 2025 and it warmed my heart, but there's definitely some highlights of those areas that are being magnified of differences in not the most productive way. And I hope that we can come together and go, we can be different. We can agree to disagree, and we're not the enemy. No matter where we stand, we have an opportunity to walk that out in 2026.
And I like that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, both of you ladies mentioned that. I call that civil discourse. So I'm super excited about that. And the amazing thing is, for those who stay tuned to our next episode, we will be talking about and touching on 2025 and recapping that, and kind of getting into the crux of what that looked like for a lot of our communities and ourselves as well. So I'm super excited, ladies. Again, Happy New Year. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.
Happy New Year.